Welcome to the Jewelry Resellers Podcast, your go-to source for all things shiny, sparkly, and of course, profitable. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'll be your guide on this dazzling journey through the world of reselling jewelry. We'll be diving deep into the art and science of reselling, uncovering valuable tips, insider secrets, and sharing stories from successful jewelry resellers. We'll explore market trends, industry news, and even discuss how to find those hidden gems just waiting to be discovered in thrift stores, estate sales, and beyond. So if you're dreaming of turning your hobby into a hustle, or if you're a seasoned pro looking to stay at the top of your jewelry reselling game, join me each week for insights, stories, and more on the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I'm your host, Desiree, and today we will be talking about how to figure out your niche or your niche as a jewelry reseller. I recently got a question about this, so I thought it would be a good topic for a podcast episode because I know a lot of people who are getting started, they are under the impression that if they decide to become a jewelry reseller, that is their niche. That is where their focus is going to be as it relates to categories. But if you've been doing this for any length of time, you know that it can go much deeper, much more specific, much more targeted. And so we're going to kind of figure out, how do you know what your niche is within jewelry or as a jewelry reseller. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to remind you to join our weekly newsletter. And I think this will be helpful for you as well if you are just getting started. And that is what I'm going to send you when you sign up for the newsletter. You will receive a copy of my personal list of the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. Even if you don't only sell jewelry, this list is going to be helpful because sometimes when you're outsourcing, you'll stumble across some jewelry. You may not be looking for it, but you may see a table or a glass case or something like that with some jewelry on it. And at least if you go over this list and you familiarize yourself with the brands that are listed on there, you'll have a good idea of what could be worth picking up and what you might want to buy or maybe flip or whatever. All right, so you can get a copy of that list. All you got to do is head on over to the website, jewelryresellerspodcast.com. And that's jewelryresellerspodcast.com. I will also have a link for you in the show notes and also in the description if you are listening to this on YouTube. All right, so let's get into today's topic, how to figure out your niche as a vintage jewelry reseller or just as a jewelry reseller in general. Because I know some people do specifically focus on vintage jewelry. And then we have people who resell jewelry who focus on specific brands. Now, if you saw or listened to the podcast episode I did with my friend Jen, we actually kind of fleshed this out and we got really, really into niching down your jewelry reselling business. And she explained how she does it and what works for her. But I want what I'm going to talk about today to be a lot more general because, Jen's been doing this for a while. And if you're a beginner, you may not know where to start. You may not have any idea, any clue, and you just don't know how that looks for you, what is going to work, what's not going to work. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that. All right, so finding a niche as a jewelry reseller will involve identifying a specific area of the market, in this case, the reselling market, where you can specialize, excel, and stand out among the competition. Now, this focus not only helps you in curating a more targeted inventory, but it will also help you attract a very dedicated customer base. And of course, this is going to take time. So don't expect that you're going to get all of this right away. Okay, it will take you some time to figure out. But we're going to talk about some steps today to help make this process a little bit easier. And understand too that things will change as you move through your jewelry reselling or just your reselling career. You know, I want to say 80% of what I sell is jewelry, but I sell other things as well. And there's been periods of time throughout my reselling career where I have only sold jewelry, and there have also been times when I didn't sell any jewelry. So understand that things will fluctuate and things will change as you move through this process and as you learn. And even in your life, you know, what you can and cannot do as it relates to your reselling business will change because life events happen. You know, sometimes we have to make big changes in our lives, and that will affect or impact how we run our business, or maybe even our abilities to run our business. All right, so the first thing you want to do is really do some research. Okay, research what is selling out there. And you also want to research what you are interested in selling. So let's say you want to focus on vintage jewelry. All right, now is there going to be a specific brand of vintage jewelry, or maybe a specific era of vintage jewelry, or maybe a specific design of vintage jewelry? Because vintage jewelry is a very broad category and it covers a lot. So just saying you are a vintage jewelry reseller isn't necessarily a niche. I mean, yes, it could be when you're thinking about comparing it to the overall jewelry category, like on eBay or something like that. But you need to get a little bit more specific. And I think it will actually help you in other areas of your reselling business as well, because then you instantly know what you're looking for, what to leave behind, and where you want to spend your time, your money, and your attention. Okay, and you also want to look at what other jewelry resellers are offering. Are there any gaps in the market or areas that are oversaturated? Now, in general, I've heard people say that the jewelry category on eBay is very, very overly saturated. And from my experience, I will say, yeah, I will agree with that. You know, I don't have any data in front of me to prove that or anything specific, but I know just from my own experience, talking with other jewelry resellers, seeing what's going on as it relates to what's selling, what's not. Yeah, we can say that jewelry in general is oversaturated, but is every subcategory within jewelry oversaturated? And that's going to be where you need to put your focus, because you're going to have to figure out, okay, if I want to sell vintage jewelry, what kind of vintage jewelry can I sell? Okay, and where would I have a little bit more leverage as it relates to competition selling similar type or similar styles of jewelry? Okay. All right, we also want to identify trends. We want to stay up to date with current trends in both fashion and jewelry markets. You also want to pay attention to social media, fashion magazines, trend reports, and see what consumers are interested in. Now, this will be very helpful. And this is another thing that I really enjoy doing as it relates to bringing you this information as a jewelry reseller. I love social media. I love news, and I love following updates and trends and all of those things, because I like to be as up to date as possible with the information that I have and with the information that I'm sharing with you. And I get it. That's not everyone's thing. So I'm not saying you have to be a news hound like I am, but you do need to at least have some type of idea of what's popular right now. Okay? All right, let's move on to point number 2, and that is to assess your interests and your strengths. Now, this is going to be, I think, kind of the foundation of you figuring out your niche, because it's taken me a while, my own personal journey, it's taken me a while with this, because I have found a niche. For example, I have found a niche with live selling. I really love it. I enjoy it. I could do it every day. And that's just because it works with my personal interests and my personal strengths, right? So you're going to have to figure out that as well. What is your personal passion? What do you get fired up about as it relates to jewelry? Because see, that's going to really make you stand out among other people who may be selling the same thing. Now, of course, if you're selling on some place like eBay, not everybody's going to be able to see your personality or your enthusiasm about something, but your knowledge, your detailed information, maybe your experience or your education about a certain type of jewelry will definitely make you stand out. And those are things you can communicate in your listings. All right, so you want to make sure you build a business around your interests. And this will help you be able to stick to this long term because it's going to fluctuate. There's going to be ups, downs, sideways. All kinds of things are going to happen. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be able to sustain this, right? So you want to make sure this is something you're actually interested in. All right. And that will help you narrow down your niche. All right. You also want to take some time to think about your own knowledge and expertise. Evaluate what you already know as it relates to jewelry. You know, your niche could align with areas where you already have a lot of knowledge or information or anything. Or if you're willing to learn, that's kind of how I was. I was really interested in learning about jewelry, especially vintage jewelry and especially certain brands. I really wanted to know as much as I could about them. And that was really helpful for me. All right. So number 2, the point is to really figure out what interests you and what your strong points are. Okay, let's move on to point number 3, and that is to understand your target audience. So we want to think about demographics of the potential customers that we are hoping to sell our jewelry to. We want to think about things such as age, income level, and lifestyle. And again, when I did the episode with my friend Jen, she has a very clear understanding of who her buyers are. Now, sometimes on eBay, you're not going to get this deep into the demographics of your customers. But if you are considering selling maybe on your own website, maybe on social media or something like that, then it would definitely benefit you to know who your potential buyers are. And remember that different groups may be interested in different styles or eras of certain types of jewelry. You also want to know your customers' needs and preferences. Take the time to identify what your target customers are looking for as it relates to jewelry. And I've said this before, this could be anything, certain styles, periods, designers, types of jewelry. Do they want rings? Do they want necklaces? Do they want earrings? All of those things. Now, of course, you can have a very profitable reselling business selling whatever you find, because that's what I've done. And it works for a while, but what I have learned moving through this is that the business is not as streamlined as what I would like it to be. Now, maybe that's not an important part for you. But what I have found is that when you specialize in something, it's much easier to sell something because you're so knowledgeable about it and you know it every which way. And so when you know something that well, it's almost like people come to you because they trust that you know what you're talking about, you know what your inventory is, you know where it comes from, you know how it's made, you know how to take care of it. In some cases, you may know how to fix it. So all of these things are very important if you want to be, or I should say if you want to stand out as it relates to doing this, okay? All right, now number 4, and this is really important too. We want to really think about how much money can we really make, okay? Now, I understand a lot of us love jewelry. I get it. I'm there. I love me some jewelry. But the bottom line is we're all in this to make money. Okay. Now, maybe not everybody has that as the number one goal, because I do talk to people who sell jewelry for the sake of just selling jewelry because it's a fun hobby for them. They like to do it. It's relaxing. It's enjoyable. It's fun for them to go out and hunt for pieces, and they're not necessarily trying to pay the bills with this. Okay. But I come from the other side where I am trying to pay the bills with this. So I really have to take into consideration, how much money can I make? If I have a certain income goal, then I need to make sure the jewelry I sell will get me to that income goal, right? I can't get there selling fast fashion pieces that maybe sell for $10 a piece. That's not going to get me to my goal. But if I can sell pieces that are selling for, let's say, $40, $50, $100 a piece, and I can sell as much as I need to sell to get to those goals, then yeah, that's something I can do, something I can work with. All right, so you want to think about how that looks for you. And I'm not saying you can't make a living flipping $5 necklaces. I've done that. The thing is, do you have the time to sell the volume that you need to sell in order to hit your goals? Because remember, you can model this business any way you want. All right. You can be, the $2 necklace lady. I know people who do that. The thing is they sell quite a bit, and they sell tons and tons and tons of it. Of course, not every piece is going to sell for $5 or whatever, but you want to take the time to figure out what that looks like for you. Okay. But then all of that is also dependent upon the jewelry that you can source. Okay. So we want to remember the availability of the inventory. Is there a reliable supply of the types of jewelry that you want to specialize in? This is huge, because I think sourcing is probably the hardest part for a lot of people in the beginning, because number one, you don't know, you're still learning. You're learning what to look for and what sells. And then number two, you're still trying to figure out how to sell it, right? Because learning eBay takes, it takes time. Learning how to sell on Poshmark takes time. You're not just going to, go on there and know everything on day one. So what can you source? What's available to you? And some people may not have a lot of places to source in their area, in their neighborhood, but maybe they're sourcing online. And again, that takes time to learn. Okay, so you've got to figure out what you have access to as it relates to your jewelry, especially if you're trying to niche down. Because if you're trying to sell say Trifari, well, where are you going to find a bunch of Trifari jewelry pieces in the amount that you need in order to hit your income goals? And then where are you going to find that week after week or every month? Can you find that every month, right? Because you may find a huge lot one month, but you may not find a huge lot the next month. So then what are you going to sell? Because, the bills come due every month. So we have to make sure we have inventory every month, or every week, or every day in some cases. Okay, so really think about that. Really think about that. All right, and some niches may be harder to stock consistently due to rarity. All right, so that goes back to what I was saying. It may not necessarily be easy to have a consistent supply of the inventory that you are looking for. Now, this isn't to deter you from niching down or niching down. I really don't know how to pronounce that. Is it niche or is it niche? So you may hear me say it both ways on this podcast, but these are the things that come in that I think a lot of people don't consider when they want to niche down. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm being very upfront and honest about it, because so many of us struggle with this. And as much as we want to niche down, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. But that's not to say it's impossible either. It can be done. I know people who are doing it. And for some people, it may be easier than others. Some people may inherit, a garage full of jewelry, and they can work from that. Other people like me have to go out and, hit the pavement, so to speak, to find what we need. Okay, so now we are on point number 5, and that is to experiment, get feedback, and track your results, and kind of pay attention to what's working and what's not. Okay, so we want to run small tests for ourselves. Consider offering a broad range of vintage jewelry or jewelry when you're first getting started, and then keep track of what is selling best and what is selling quickly for you. This is going to be different for all of us. There's some people who can sell certain brands that for me just don't move. And then there's things for me that, I literally cannot keep them in stock. And then for other people, again, they have the problem where they can't give it away. Okay, so it's going to be different for all of us, and this is where you're going to have to pay attention. Now, obviously, you can do this on eBay because you can keep track of your what sold, and you can keep track of, when they sold, how long it took for it to sell, what selling price it sold for. Because sometimes things will sell for you very well, but they may not sell very quickly, or vice versa. Sometimes things sell very quickly. And so that's good. You just know, okay, this sells really well for me. Okay, so you want to really keep track of what you're selling and what's not selling for you. All right, and once you do that, you'll be able to refine your niche in some way, based on that data and maybe some feedback either from your buyers or your own experience. You can narrow down your focus to the types of jewelry that are most popular and profitable for you. Okay, so for me in the beginning, I did keep a notebook, but then that got to be too much. But maybe if you're just starting, that might work for you. Of course, some of you may use a spreadsheet for some of this information and some of this data that you're tracking. But if you are selling on eBay, you will be able to track this in your Seller Hub. And I think that is a good place to get a lot of this information. Now, if you're not selling on eBay, depending on what platform you're selling on, you'll be able to do that, I'm pretty sure, in whatever kind of back office that the platform offers. Or if you're selling in person, you may have, like I said, a spreadsheet or maybe a notebook like what I had in the beginning to just keep track of what you sourced, when you listed it or when you sold it and how much it sold for, and then what your cost was, in order to sell that, because you're probably going to have some fees no matter where you sell. Even if you're selling offline, you're going to have, some kind of fees involved either to ship it or, whatever. Okay, so let's move on to point number 6, and this is to build relationships. I can't emphasize how important this really is because I know a lot of us work from home and we work alone doing this, but when you build relationships with other collectors and sellers and buyers, they will share information that will give you insights and tips about certain niches, markets, whatever, and that will help you source unique items and unique pieces. Okay, so you can never have too much information as it relates to this business. That's my belief. You just can never know too much. And it seems like no matter which way you turn, there's always something more to learn. So networking with other people who are in the jewelry industry or business or reselling business in some way, shape, or form is only going to help you, right? You guys can exchange ideas, maybe share some opinions on what's working, what's not, maybe even teach each other things that maybe you didn't know, or maybe you were struggling to figure out on your own. All right, you also want to join communities, participate in online forums, social media groups, and attend events related to jewelry to deepen your understanding of specific niches. Okay, now I've talked about this before. There are so many groups on Facebook. That's where I get a lot of information from. I can't tell you. I mean, I'm probably in hundreds of jewelry groups on Facebook, and that is no exaggeration. I can't even keep track of them all. And of course, I don't go in each group every day, but I like knowing that if I stumble across something, hey, I can go to the Bakelite jewelry group, or I can go to the Brooches jewelry group, or I can go to the Monet jewelry group, right? So you will find people in those groups who are very, very knowledgeable and who are very generous with their information. You know, the groups are free and people freely share what they know, and they're happy to do so, you know. So really take advantage of that if you can. I know not everybody's on Facebook and not everybody, you know, feels comfortable in some of those groups, but that's a really good way to kind of help you figure out a niche. And you can talk to people who may already be selling jewelry in that particular niche, and you can, you know, get their ideas or get their feedback or get their input about what it is. Now, some people may not be very open about that, but there's going to be people who are, and those are the ones you want to connect with. All right, so point number 7, and I'm probably going to have to do a podcast episode on this too, and that's about branding your business. Because once you've identified your niche, you want to brand your business accordingly. All right, this includes your business name, logo, marketing materials, and social media presence to reflect the specific style or era of jewelry that you are specializing in. Now, because I love social media so much, I am going to be a big cheerleader for branding because I think it is one of the most effective ways to get your business in front of people for free. Of course, you can pay to run ads and all that type of stuff, and I'm not saying don't do that. But if you are trying to make this your full-time gig, if you are trying to pay your bills with this, I don't see how you could do it without being involved in social media in some way. All right, because you're either going to have to run ads or you're going to have to, you know, have a social media page where people can find your items. Because if you don't and you only rely on eBay or whatever, Etsy, to sell your stuff, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. All right, so get comfortable with putting yourself out there. Now, I'm not saying you have to put your face out there, but you do have to let people know that you are selling a specific type of jewelry, because how are people going to find you? And especially if you are, you know, niching down, it's important to let people know, hey, I'm the jewelry lady. I specialize in XYZ. Or if you know anybody who's looking for this specific type of jewelry, please send them my way. All right. And you can do this very creatively on social media. All right. But this is all part of your branding. And this is how you're also going to attract other people who may be either selling maybe something similar, or maybe they could be teaching, and you can find opportunities to collaborate with these people and connect your products, in this case, your jewelry, with even more buyers. Okay, so think about that if you are in the process of niching down. How will people find you? How will they know that this is your specific niche as it relates to jewelry? Okay, so my last point is to stay flexible. Now, because we are talking about jewelry, we understand that things change, right? Jewelry is one of those things like fashion where it could change in any moment depending on what's happening in the world, what's going on with our news, our culture, celebrities, current events. All of those things could impact consumer interest as it relates to jewelry. Now, right now, vintage jewelry is very hot and very popular. So there's a lot of people out there making money selling vintage jewelry. And this means there's also a lot of people out there looking and sourcing vintage jewelry. But again, this doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you may have to make changes along the way. You may have to adapt here and there. You may have to pivot every now and again. All right. And this is where I think creativity comes in too. Because I think a lot of us who sell jewelry, it's because we have an appreciation for design and pretty things and sometimes the meaning of what jewelry represents or what it symbolizes. So sometimes you can kind of come from those angles as it relates to your jewelry as well. And you can really communicate that to your customers, because things will change over time and you will change over time. Because I look at myself and I think about when I first started, I just said, I want to sell jewelry because it's small and because I don't have a lot of space in my house. And so that was all I was planning to do. That was all I wanted to do. I said, I just want small inventory because I don't have space. And so that's a very broad niche of selling jewelry, because basically I'm saying as long as it's small, I'll try and sell it. Well, over time, that didn't necessarily work so good because I was kind of all over the place. And as time went on, I realized that I really loved vintage jewelry. And then, there were certain brands that I was in love with as well. And so I say that to say that you may find yourself kind of figuring things out. And I hope that this podcast episode gave you some things to think about and gave you some things to really consider, because it's going to take some time. But the sooner you make certain decisions, the easier the decisions after that will be. Because let's say your niche is, I don't know, costume jewelry from the 80s. Well, that's going to really help you when you're searching, like when you're sourcing for this stuff, right? Because now okay, I'm not necessarily looking for luxury pieces. I'm not necessarily looking for modern pieces. I'm looking for a jewelry that has a very distinct style and a very distinct design, because I know what I'm looking for. And I hope that makes sense. It's like because you're not going to waste time. You're not going to be so scattered. You're not going to be so diverted with your time and attention. It's like now you can zero in and really focus and be disciplined on what you buy. Because that is another mistake you can make if you don't necessarily have a niche within jewelry, is you can just start buying all kinds of random stuff. And you may know a little bit about this and you may know a lot about that, and then you may know nothing about something else you bought. So now you have to actually spend more time researching each piece because they're all different, right? You may have something, a Victorian era piece, and then you may have an Art Deco piece, and then you may have a modern contemporary piece. And so, now you have to really make, I don't want to say more work for yourself, but your process is not going to be as efficient as it could be. And if you're trying to do this at a level to where it provides you a full-time income, you're going to have to really figure out how to make this more efficient. Okay, so, and I don't want to scare anybody and I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but I want to be realistic and I want to be honest about what it's going to take. Because I've had people approach me and they say, well, I just want to sell jewelry, and make a ton of money. Well, don't we all? Don't we all? But it doesn't quite fall into place like that. Now, you can get to the point to where it will fall into place like that for you, but it's going to take some time and it's going to take some investment on your part. It's going to take some investment as it relates to you doing the research and, increasing your knowledge. And again, I'm going to be honest, it's going to take some financial investment as well, because you have to buy the inventory. You have to spend money on the pieces that you want so you can flip them, right? And sometimes you may spend more than what you had planned, and other times you may get a fantastic deal and then make money on top of that, and then you just reinvest all of that back in. Okay? So, identifying a niche requires a balance between your interests, market demand, and profitability. It's an ongoing process of learning and adaptation, but finding the right niche can significantly enhance your success as a jewelry reseller. So I know we covered a lot today. We talked about a lot. And like I said, I just wanted to be really honest and upfront and give you a realistic approach about how this can work, because it can work. I am just so amazed at how people make this work. Okay? I mean, because really, everybody, it's like there's so many of us out there selling jewelry, but all of us have different businesses. We all have tweaked and changed and shifted to make this work for us. And that's really what I want to communicate to you. So you may not do it my way. I may not do things your way. Some of these things and what we talked about, on my list today, maybe some of them apply to you, maybe they don't. Maybe you don't think some of them are important. Maybe you think all of them are important. All right, but you really have to get clear on how you want your business to look and how you're going to get to your goals. Okay? All right, so again, if you are not part of our newsletter, please sign up, because yes, I'm going to send you the list of the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. But I also make a lot of announcements in the newsletter. I make announcements on courses that are coming up. Sometimes I may throw in some coupon codes or discounts. I also talk about upcoming sales. And I also like to recap all the stuff that happened in the week. So if you missed one of the episodes, I, provide links and all of that stuff so you can go back and listen or watch, depending on what the episode was. And that way you don't miss anything. So I would love to have you as part of our newsletter family. I would also love it if you can join us on YouTube. I am really excited because the channel over there is growing so quickly. So I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed to the channel, because I'm really blown away by how quickly that channel is growing, and I'm so passionate about it, and I enjoy doing this so much. So I really love seeing the support and the feedbacks and the beautiful comments that you all are leaving on the videos and the audio episodes that are over there as well. All right, so I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you have any questions, or if you have any ideas for upcoming episodes or topics that you'd like me to cover, you can do that by messaging me on any of the social medias, or of course, I do have my contact information on the website, and that is at jewelryresellerspodcast.com. That's where you can find everything that I've talked about today. And yeah, that's going to be it. All right, my friends, thank you again so much. I'll check in with you again really soon.